amazing day with Mask Off, a Charity Movement podcast where I am the host and the founder, Keiara B. Gladney. I am just amazed at the fact that we are really going very fast through 2025, the remainder of 2025. And oh, how happy I am to continue to go every Monday, every step of the way with each of our listeners as we have a goal for continual growth and development and transition. I truly believe this is a year of examination. It is a year of allowing God to be the potter and allowing God to mold us and shape us in how He wants us to go so that He can get the glory out of our lives. Because we know, and we've heard so many times before in His word, that when He is lifted up, He will draw all men unto Himself. And so there is no second guessing the fact that God's desire is for us to be better. His desire for us is to grow and to mature so that we then can be examples for others as Jesus is the example for us. And so it is just an honor to be in this space where I get to have dialogue. I get to have these discussion topics where I really go into what God has really just been showing me these last few weeks or last few months, that I know that His desire is for me to give you just some of the nuggets that God has been giving to me throughout this year. And so I'm just so happy and honored to do so. Before I get into the topic for today, which you already know because you've already clicked the thumbnail to access this video or to see or listen to the podcast, I would love for you to subscribe to the Charity Movement YouTube page. I would love for you to turn on your notifications so that you can see and be notified when there are episodes that are uploaded or videos that are uploaded for you. I would love for you to comment on our video, share it with somebody who really needs this encouragement, that will be moved and pricked in their hearts to do better, to do more, or just to allow God to lead them. It is very important that God be the head, God be the alpha, even in your situation. And so I would love for you to do that. I'll give you a couple seconds to do it. Okay, I think that's giving you enough time, okay? But I'm just so appreciative to everyone who is subscribed to the YouTube page, that has, really supported in any regard. I am grateful. So let's get into the topic for today. Today's topic is the duality of promotion. And the scripture that God had begun to speak to me about was from Psalm 75, verses 6 and 7. And I'm going to read it out of the King James Version. And it says, "For promotion cometh neither from the east, nor the west, nor from the south. But God is the judge. He putteth down one and setteth up another." So God is the one who provides promotion. God is the one who sets people up and who takes them down when their time is up. And we see that in the Old Testament repeatedly. If you've ever read the book of Numbers, the book of First Chronicles, Second Chronicles, the book of First Kings, Second Kings, you will clearly see, this king did good in the sight of the Lord, this king did evil in the sight of the Lord, and God took them down. God set this person up, and they did good in the sight of the Lord, or they did evil in the sight of the Lord, and then God took them down, and God raised somebody else up. And that is like the story and the cadence that those books reflect. And so for me, God has really just been having me on this journey this year of reflection and examining myself, of where I am and where's my perspective and where's my mind and where's my will, where are my intentions, where are my emotions in these moments that I am transitioning through. And that has been not just natural, that has not just been professional, that has been spiritual, that has been familial. And so God has really been having me not even look at everyone else and what they are doing and what they are saying. I am so focused on bettering the person that I see in the mirror every day to ensure that I am walking upright before the Lord. Because when people see me, I know they don't just see me, they see God in me. And so if people see me and they do not see God in me, that is an issue. And so I want to ensure that no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, I am reflecting what God has done for me and through me so that he can be glorified. And so when I was going through this week, transitioning through the week before to ensure that I had an idea of what the topic would be today, I was actually in a session for a professional development cohort that I, was chosen for in our region. And so that program is a 50-person program from like the regional area that kind of goes together for 5 months of intensive development. So these are like one-on-one meetings, these are group sessions, these are activities and different assessments that will show what areas we need to grow on, we need to mature in, things that we need continuous quality improvement. Okay. And so these sessions have really been beneficial for me to put things into perspective of where I am, what skills I have, what areas I am naturally gifted in, what areas I need to work more rigorously for, the areas that I am emerging in as a leader and as an executive, and how I can start honing in on the skills that I need in order for me to be a stronger professional. And so each session has really been leaving me with a lot of serious nuggets, because I think that when you are in a state where everyone is on the same level as you, sometimes you don't receive the type of constructive criticism that you need to kind of sharpen you and ting you a little bit so that you can get better. And this professional development cohort has been all of that for me. And in our last session, we have been really talking about emotional intelligence in executive leadership. And not just emotional intelligence, but quite specifically, the presence of compassion and empathy as you are an effective executive leader, and how that shows up in our ability to handle and manage conflict. And so conflict is all around us, even with our children and with our spouses. And, in every situation, there may be areas of conflict of disagreements, conflict of unrealistic expectations, conflict of just misunderstanding. There are always areas that we are attempting to resolve conflict, and empathy and compassion are forefront in understanding and dealing with conflict. Reason being, in order for you to fully deal with conflict, number one, you have to be aware of yourself and where you are, and what your attitude is, and what your communication type is, all of those things. After that, then you have to see the world around you. You have to be able to see the perspective of every person around you and not disregard it, but validate where that person is and where we need to be to come to a mutual understanding so that we can have forward motion. And what I am seeing as an emerging leader in the capacity that I am in now is that a lot of times we have opportunities for growth and development, but we have not gained the necessary skills that will sustain us in those new areas of development. And so when I think of a duality of promotion, I take that as, and what I am going to talk about in this episode today is how it is a beautiful thing, because I just read to you in the Psalm about how promotion does not come from the east or the west or the south. It comes from the Lord, right? It's a beautiful thing when God promotes you. It's a beautiful thing when you're promoted on your job. It's a great thing when you're promoted in your community, if you're a civil servant. It's a beautiful thing if you're promoted spiritually in your organization or whatever fellowship you are a part of. It's a beautiful thing. But there's a duality of promotion that entails the growing pains that are necessary for development, the development of skills, the development of experience, the development of understanding conflict in those areas, understanding the people that you will then have to serve. That is another area of promotion that oftentimes take the longest to become natural to. Oftentimes, after someone has been promoted, they are given all of these new tasks and responsibilities, these duties that sometimes they haven't even been groomed to fulfill. So now they're walking in uncharted territory because they realize, oh my goodness, I've been given this amazing opportunity to lead in this capacity. I've been given this amazing opportunity to impact in this area, but I realized I might not be 100% ready. And so it is very important that we look at the scripture as our North Star. I thought about, even as I was preparing for the podcast episode, even as I was really gleaning on the things that God was showing me in the week before, is that David is a great example of what it means to be promoted and what that process looks like for a person that serves God. And so David, we know, is the son of Jesse. And he was the younger sibling of a lot of, older, stronger soldier brothers. Okay, that's what I call them. Older, stronger soldier brothers. And so David was a shepherd in his own right. David was the herder of his father's sheep. And so he protected those sheep. He was very serious for those sheep. The Bible says that he was a ruddy teenager. And so even in scripture, we see that David is passionate about keeping track of and grooming and supporting his sheep that he was responsible for. And not just responsible for, but the Bible even talks about how he defeated the lion and the bear when they were trying to attack and take his sheep, indicating that he had an innate ability to understand that sheep need to be covered. And all of us as spirit-filled believers should understand the importance of strengthening and protecting our brothers and sisters in Christ. Even protecting those and interceding for those who may not know Christ, but they're connected to us some type of way. It is very important that we understand the type of skills that we have naturally or innately, because a lot of times the purpose that God has given to us is directly attached to that. And so we see David being passionate about protecting the sheep, whether it was taking out a bear, taking out a lion. His focus was, no matter how strong that thing is, no matter how big that thing is, I have to defeat it to keep the sheep. And so we even see that in how it comes about that David is fighting against Goliath. David was directed to go bring food to the soldiers, to go bring sustenance to his brothers, and he sees these Philistines. He sees and he hears the word that they are saying about the children of Israel. He sees how a lot of the soldiers are scared, and he's saying, who's going to rise up and fight against this uncircumcised Philistine? And so Saul said, well, if you going to go? You really going to go? King Saul says, you're really going to go? Yeah, I'm going. I have to defend the Lord, the creator of heaven and earth, the living God. I have to go represent him and show his power to these people who are disrespecting our God. And so Saul said, well, I can give you my armor, because you can't go out there and fight him and you're not even protected. You're not shielded by anything. And so when David started just filling out the armor and all of the pieces that belonged to Saul, he realized, I can't even move around in this stuff. This is not my armor to bear. I have not earned the right to wear this armor, but I am going to take these 5 smooth stones. I am going to take my slingshot, and I'm going on over here and address this Philistine. And what he did was, he went on over there and he addressed the Philistine. And the Philistine thought, well, he's small, he's ready, he's young, he needs to go on back over there with the rest of the people and hide in a tent and let us just take these soldiers out the game. No, David did not do that. David was not moved by the words that Goliath was saying. David was not moved by how big of stature Goliath was. He said, I'm going to take you out. God is going to give me the power and the strength to take you out, to show that he is the true and living God. And it took that one smooth stone to go up, get him in the head, and he was done. And so from then on, what David did was talked about in the land. From then on, after he had fought Goliath and the people of Israel were they were marveling at the fact that David did this thing, to the extent that as he began to grow in victory and notoriety, there were songs saying about David that Saul killed his thousands and David killed his thousands. And after a certain point, such growth began to happen in David's life. Not only that, but even in seasons where Saul was vexed with evil spirits, they would send for David because they knew that David played the harp and David sang before the Lord. And so when that happened, David would go to Saul's chambers and play the harp until the spirits left and he was soothed in his spirit enough to go to sleep. And so this is the type of lifestyle that David had. And so even throughout David's life, at a certain point, he even became very close in covenant and brotherhood with Jonathan, who was Saul's son. And so Jonathan loved David and David loved Jonathan, to the point where for Jonathan was covering for David. He was, protecting David. He wanted to make sure that David survived. He wanted to make sure that David was supported, that David had a friend, that David had a confidant. And that's such an important thing as you start going through where God is taking you, that you have somebody along the way that will hold you up when you're weak, that will give you kingdom perspective, that will encourage your heart when you don't feel like you can encourage yourself. Somebody who will pray for you, someone who will stand up for you, even if it's against people that they love. That is a beautiful part of when you have covenant with people that you love, that they love you enough to say, even if the love is inconvenient, even if it gets dangerous for me, where I have to pick a side, I love you anyway. And that was the relationship of David and Jonathan. And so just continuing with that, we even see when Saul becomes vexed by the very presence of David. He tried to throw a knife at David. He tried to kill David to the point where David was on the run. David was on the run several times. David was on the run from Saul. David was on the run from his own son, Absalom. All that to say, David experienced so many ebbs and flows of leadership and promotion and what that looks like and what being called feels like. And yes, we know that David had his instances of sin and his errors and his secret faults. David had his areas of improvement, okay? And David also had his areas of taking responsibility of his actions and living with the result of those said actions, okay? Not going back on it, not saying mercy, mercy, mercy me, but saying, okay, I'm going to have to accept it. This is the Lord's will. Okay. And so David experienced so many things. Like I said, Saul, who was the king at that time, was so dissatisfied. He was vexed in his heart about David because he knew, he could see what was in David, because David had been anointed as a teenager by the prophet priest Samuel. Okay. And so he was anointed as a teenager. And so going through all of these things, he had to experience such turmoil, such pain, such disappointment, even on his road to what the prophet promised him, that he would one day be the king. And so it is not until David is 30 years old that he is actually anointed again as king over all Israel. It is not until he's 30 years old, after he's been anointed as a teenager, it's not until he's 30 years old that he actually steps into the kingship. It is important to note that promotion may not have a deadline. It may not have a date. All you are doing is doing exactly what God directed Abram to do, which is get up, go out, and as you walk, I'm going to direct your path. That's why Proverbs says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not to thine own understanding, and in all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. It is so important that you allow God to lead your path, because even in seasons where you are bewildered, even in seasons where you are tired, even in seasons that are so disappointing or uncomfortable for you, there has to be some level of reassurance to say, God, I trust what you're doing. I'm going to follow after you, even if I don't see what the end is going to be, because I know that in you all things consist. In you all things are possible. So as long as I align myself with your will for my life, success is going to happen. Victory is going to happen for me in this time. So it's just so interesting to think about David, because like I said, he was anointed as a teenager. He didn't get anointed again as the official king of Israel until the age of 30. And so I'm actually going to read a piece of that, and we're going to talk about that a little further. 2 Samuel chapter 5, verses 1 through 5, and then I'm going to read 9 and 10. And so it says, Then came all the tribes of Israel to David unto Hebron, and spake, saying, Behold, we are thy bone and thy flesh. And in time past, when Saul was king over us, thou was he that led us out and brought us in Israel. And the Lord said to thee, Thou shalt feed my people Israel, and thou shalt be a captain over Israel. So all the elders of Israel came to the king of Hebron, and King David made a league with them in Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over Israel. David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years. In Hebron, he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months. And in Jerusalem, he reigned 33 years over all Israel and Judah. So David dwelt in the fort and called it the city of David. And David built round about from Millo and inward. And David went on and grew great, and the Lord God of hosts was with him. And so it is important to understand that even when you don't see how God is going to do things, even if you don't see the end result, it is a comforting thing to know that God is with you. That makes that stage of promotion that much easier to handle, because if God is for you, it is more than the whole world against you. If God has your back, you don't have to worry about opposition. You don't have to worry about naysayers. You don't have to worry about unrealistic expectations on you. If God is for you, no man, no boy, no girl, no woman, no system will stop what God wants to do in and through you. Okay? In the leadership development cohort that I am in, I realized over time that two things can be right at the same time. And I think about this because as someone who has gone through different promotions and has gone through different career moves that has led me to where I am today, I often think about the duality of these promotions. While, in previous roles that I've had, there are clear signs of success or failure. There are clear indicators of if you are doing a great job or if you are impacting in the work and the target audience that work is geared to serve or support. And in my previous roles, you could clearly see, you could kind of check off boxes of, did you do this for all your target audience? Did you, provide these services? Did you do this assessment? Did you provide these, reports? All of these things where you check off these boxes, or did you hold these events, and did you help every student in that class, or did you do all of these things? And you jot down those notes and you check off boxes. And at the end of the year, it's like, oh, I did all of this stuff. However, in the role that I am currently in, it is a ever-growing role. And so where it feels, and it is also a relatively new initiative. And so while I feel like as the car is driving, we are then fixing and shifting and adjusting things to ensure that it is a smooth ride, rather than the ride already being made smooth because it has been tested before I got in the vehicle, before I took it off the lot. And so that is the difference. And so I heard a facilitator from my professional development cohort, who talked about how she has found that when some individuals get promoted, they have a hard time seeing the progress that they are making in the new role, because in the previous roles, just the indicators were a lot easier to catch and assess. And so I thought about that in my role, and I was wondering why I felt such a growing pain in the role that I am in now. And it is because there are not clear signs of where the impact is going. I just know that I'm making impact. because I am doing exactly what I've been asked and directed to do. And so, as much as we love promotion, we love the idea of having more income or more opportunities to help in our community or more area to impact in our organization that we work in. At the end of the day, we all have to address whether or not we still feel that twinge of emotion that says, I am uncomfortable where I am. I'm glad for where I am. I'm grateful for where I am, but I'm also very uncomfortable with where I am. And sometimes I don't like it. And so I have had to accept the fact that right now, this is where we are. This is where everyone in our area is in. I am doing the things that I've been asked to do. I have the autonomy to kind of move in some spaces to push our initiative to where we want it to be, to impact lives. And I have to be okay with knowing that the results are coming and that what I am doing is building a fundamental route for those things to take place. And so a duality of promotion means that you can feel two different perspectives at the same time and still be grateful for where you are. I know that David probably would have chosen not to make an enemy with the king of Israel and not to be, ran out of his own area and, left alone to survive and, just all of these different things. He would have chosen to have an easier path. I would have. I think anybody in their right mind would say, I'll take the easier path for 500, Alex. But that was not the route that God intended for him to take. And so I jotted down some questions that I thought would be awesome for me to kind of talk through, not just for myself, but the people who are listening, because I have discovered that a lot of people are in line with promotion, but they don't fully understand what that promotion carries. For example, in our organization, in many organizations, when you are promoted from a specialist to a manager or from a manager to a director, there are more assessment, coaching, responsibilities that are attached to that role, especially if it is human facing, if it is student focused, if it is faculty focused. There is a level of assessment and there's a level of onboarding. There's a level of research. There's a level of supporting and facilitating conversations for curriculum. There is so many facets of what it means to be promoted in an area, but then what it means to be equipped, prepared, and onboarded in that promotion. And so for a lot of us like I said, we are tweaking the car as we are driving it versus it being in the lot, being tested, being ready when we get on the lot to drive it off the lot and go to our destination. And so I have learned to discern what is a God promotion and what is a self-desired promotion. A God promotion is one where God is giving you his perspective, the big picture on this opportunity. In a lot of situations, when God allows for me to be in a place where promotion is coming on my job, in the community, or, even within the church organizations or fellowships, God has given me the big picture of who I am, what I do, what I know, what I've experienced, what my skills are, what my resources are connected with, how that can impact the individuals that are in that organization or group or the target audience that I will be serving. It is very important that you can hear the voice of God. It is very important that you are in prayer. It is very important that you read your word so that you can identify what is God. Where is this going? What direction would you like for me to go in? Where if you open up your word, God usually talks about a lot of these things, letting you know that promotion doesn't go from the east or the west or the south, but it comes from God. And it is he who sets one up and puts one down. And so a God-minded promotion, a God-led promotion is filled with a peace that passeth all understanding. It is not saying that you won't be nervous in that area. It is not saying that at some point fear might try to wiggle its ugly head in. The difference is that you are equipped and ready to fight. You are equipped and ready to intercede. You are equipped and ready to obey God rather than man, because you understand that there's a reason for you being in that place that God called you to. And so the other side of that, you know that it is a self-seeking promotion. It is a self-serving promotion when you have not thought about anyone else but how this benefits you. You've not thought about how it benefits your children if you have children, not how it benefits your spouse, not how it benefits the people around you, not how it benefits your loved ones, not how it even benefits your spiritual growth, health, development. At the end of the day, nothing is more important than your soul. At the end of the day, nothing is more important than you being in right fellowship with the Lord. And if there's any promotion, any opportunity that even has an inch of a chance of taking you away from the Lord, you don't need it. If it's a person, if it's a system, if it's a structure, I don't need it if God is not at the center of it. Because if he's at the center of it, even after your promotion, God will be with you, teaching you, helping you, molding you, progressing you in this area that you don't even know what you're doing. And so when I think about where I am and where God has brought me, I think about the fact that there have been situations that I did not have a strategy for the work that I was doing. And in prayer, in time with the Lord, and meditating on his word, meditating on what God promised me, he began to give me strategy and revelation and ideas and resources that worked, that brought change, that brought results. And that, for me, I call it the flex. That's the flex of having God-led promotion. It is knowing that God is in the midst, that God is changing hearts right in meetings. God is changing minds right in the meeting. He is writing on the tablets of their heart for favor to rest upon you when you understand that level of promotion. And so if I could think of a word that really describes my emotions stepping into this latest season of growth, I would probably just say transition. And if there is an emotion that I could say, I would probably say overwhelming. And so I know that usually the word overwhelming, it usually has a negative connotation. It is usually alluding to the fact that an individual could feel that where they are, what they are feeling, the emotion that they have is beyond their capacity to contain. And not only that, it has the potential to lead to an area of burnout or causing you to become out of character because of what you feel in those moments. Okay? And sometimes it leads to like anxiety. It can show through from fear. It can show through from you really secluding yourself. All of those things. But I want to use the word overwhelming because throughout this year, I've gone through so many transitions. I have gone through in early spring, learning about my father being sick. I've learned through, going through different areas where I am very serious about my health and development because I see what has gone on with my parents and with other people in my family, and I don't want to be a statistic. My desire is to live a life that is pleasing to God. That means in the way my physical body feels and is, my mental, my emotional, my spiritual. I want to ensure that if I have the focus to impact my physical man, I should be that much more focused managing my spiritual man, which will then impact my emotions and my mental capacity as well. And so overwhelming, I say that emotion because I just feel like so many things has come upon me. It has not stopped. There is no break on this thing. I am just going and going and going and going and going. Even in some seasons where I do not feel like there is a stop or a rest for me. And so many people tell me all the time, like, you should rest and you should do this and you should just stop and you should do that. That's the duality of promotion. There are some seasons where God will sustain you, but you are not stopping. No offense, but let me just highlight the fact. I don't know how much time we have left on this earth. I don't know how much time I have left to minister to others and evangelize so that they can take part in this fellowship that we have with God. But what I will say is, whatever moments I do have, whatever time we do have, I want it to be filled with positive reinforcement of what God has written in his word for people. So they know who God is and they understand that God loves them and they see the compassion and the empathy that I have toward them that will draw them. Because with loving kindness has God drawn us. So it can often feel overwhelming because there's so many things happen. And there's a lot of things good that have happened in my life this year. Even those things can sometimes feel overwhelming because it's just coming. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. And God, I'm grateful for it. But all the things are coming and I appreciate it. But God, and this is what I've started praying. Before I ask for a promotion, before I ask for opportunities, before I ask God to open up any window, crease, anything, before I ask him to open up crevices of anything, I pray that God gives me the wisdom, the strategy, and the endurance to appreciate and matriculate the things that God has blessed me with. I do not want anything that I am not prepared to manage so that God can be glorified. The worst thing I can do is have things and not have any level of preparedness for it and not to intentionally seek God for direction for those things. And so I think about a lot of times all the things that I've been active in every area that I've lived throughout my life and how there have been seasons of times where, for example, I was in college and pursuing my undergraduate degree, and I was in Detroit, Michigan, where I grew up, where I was born and raised. And in that time of being in college, I started helping a community safety organization. Bunch of members, very impactful, very results oriented, very passionate about the work in our community. And I was asked, because of the work that I was doing in the area, because of the activism that I had been a part of in the Detroit area, I was invited to become the membership director of that organization. 300 plus people, guys. So it's not a small thing to manage 300, 400, 500 membership people who want notifications. They want all of these things organized. And so it was a blessing for me to be given an opportunity to serve in any capacity, okay, where we are providing safety to women, children, the elderly, those who are disabled. Like, that was our focus. And so being the membership director was a great opportunity, but I also had a job. I also had 18 credits. I also had, at that point, checking on my mom, checking on my dad. I also had 2 siblings that had mental challenges. And then, of course, I'm in college, okay? I'm still trying to have a life. All those things to say, it was a beautiful opportunity to make change and to provide insight and to make impact. But overall, it was a challenge because I only have 24 hours in a day. What is going to be accomplished? Because everything I just named was not going to be. And so you have to put your life, whatever you're doing, in perspective to ensure that this move was a God move and not just a me wanting to help move. And so this year, like I said, it has been a year of transition. It has been a year that I tell people when I talk to some of my close friends, like I did not think this year was going to go the way that it has been going. But even in that, I have to appreciate God for allowing me to be in this place, but allowing me to endure this year in a different mental state. I am in a state where I understand what God is doing. I understand his word. I understand his will for my life and those around me. I understand what he is trying to accomplish and push through me, and it makes me grateful. It gives me a level of thanksgiving that God desires to use us and to sow seeds in us that grow into fruit that then we can then impact others, because he told us greater works would we be able to do. And so the flip side to both of those things is it's always a blessing to serve, whether it is in your local assembly, your organization, in your job. It's a blessing to serve other people. But it is very important that we keep the main thing the main thing. Okay? And so in this season, I've had a lot of wins. In this season, I've also had some losses. In this season, I've had some disappointments. And I have found that I must have an objective perspective, but I also must have a kingdom perspective, a spiritual perspective. Because I understand that the carnal mind is enmity against God. And so I have to intentionally, with purpose, with vigor, walk after the Spirit. I have to be in a state where God has to be glorified in me, through me, in what I say and what I do and how I act, how I respond, how I handle conflict, all of those things. And so I celebrate the areas of promotion while not disregarding what is happening around me and what that feels like for me. I celebrate by, number one, thanking God that he has allowed for me to do whatever thing I am celebrating. Number two, as much as I am supposed to have empathy for others, I have to give it to myself. I have to give myself time, patience, and a safe place to land when I just want to be. I celebrate the wins by usually just taking some time out for myself. But that also then leads for me to be really observant about what's happening and really be serious about asking God, okay, what is this? How do I continue to grow through it without saying, doing, or thinking something that's not healthy or, effective? So I think about even my husband's transition to pastoring. That in itself is its own transition. And I know he talked about a little of that when he was on the podcast a little earlier this summer. But it's a beautiful thing when my husband was installed as pastor, or we moved to Battle Creek and my husband started pastoring, and just seeing him grow as a leader, grow as a man, grow as a preacher, grow as a teacher. All of those things has been a beautiful, vivid picture of God's intention and his love for his children. That God takes, it's just so beautiful. He takes all the experiences that we've ever had, all the bad, the good, the ugly, the things that we've wanted to forget. And he wraps all of those instances and experiences up, and he aligns them well with all the skills and qualifications that we will need to lead God's people in whatever capacity. And he begins to use some of those nuggets of experiences, some of those nuggets of skills and talents that we've acquired along the way to help give I call it beefing it up. He beefs up our capacity in that role because he sees how much we've experienced in life that then gives us those resources. It gives us that perspective. It gives us that in with some people. Because there are some people that my husband can minister to because of his testimony that I may not be able to. And vice versa. For all that to say, seeing my husband transition into pastoring was such a beautiful thing because I got to see the good, the bad, and the ugly of preparation, the nights of tears, the nights of crying, the days and weeks of prayer and fasting, the times where you feel like you're alone in a room and you can't say anything but, God, I'll serve you. I just want you. All of these different things. It's a beautiful side of that. Then it's the other side of now additional sacrifices begin. Now, my husband's time is no longer his time. Now, what is pick up and drop off time going to look like for our children at certain times of the year? And what additional sacrifices will I have to make? And where will we still then make our relationship, our friendship, a priority? And we've had to navigate and continue to navigate those spaces as promotion progresses, because just as much as God has allowed for us to grow spiritually to where now we are working in these different capacities. God still desires for a man to love his wife as Christ loves the church and to give himself for it. And God still desires for the woman to submit herself to her husband as the leader and the lowercase lord of our house. And so I have had to be very honest, yet compassionate for the seasons that my husband and I have been in. I've had to be very honest about if I felt disregarded or if I felt sad or alone or confused or any of those things. And he has as well. He's had to be honest about, you're doing a lot, or I might need you to help me do this, or I need you to help me, take this load off of me. And we have to work together to where we both are growing and progressing together. And we are showing our children what teamwork looks like, the beauty of being in ministry, what that looks like. And it's hard. I'm not going to say that it is not hard, but it is worth it, obviously. But if you're not going to be honest with anybody else, you should be honest with God and you should be honest with your spouse, because everything that is happening, it affects the two people in a marriage. It affects how you manage your day. It affects what your weekends look like. It affects all of those things. And so the flip side is, it's a beautiful thing to be promoted. It's a beautiful thing to lead a mission where we are serving God's people and we are making sure that they are ready to meet the Lord, period. On the other hand, there's a huge responsibility that makes it, I'm not going to say impossible. It makes it very difficult to have real, true, open, transparent days. And I have learned that I have to have my moments in the presence of wise counsel, that with individuals that are in like-minded positions or roles or responsibilities, or they're in the same position as I am with their spouses. And so that has helped me so much, because I understand that I have community. I have a village. Just as much as David had Jonathan to go to as a confidant, I have people that I can go to that will not have a preconceived notion about who I am. They do not expect anything from me, and I am there to unload. I am there to vent, and they could do that for me as well. And so I am just grateful that I see that. I am grateful that I am in a place to appreciate that, because there was a time where I did not want to talk about anything. I did not want to go into things because there was just an area of me being on guard, because you just don't know. You don't know where someone is. You don't know where their values are. And sometimes if you don't know that person personally, you don't know what's in them. And so I am very careful before going into soliloquies of what is going on with me and where I am with it and where I am mentally and where I am emotionally, because this year transition, I can be in 15 different mental spaces at the same time. But it's just truly important that we are able to see the full perspective of what promotion looks like. So many people want to be promoted naturally in their careers, spiritually, in ministerial roles, all of those things. But you have to understand that there are two sides of those things. It's the beautiful side where you get to do more and you have opportunities, and there's obviously growth and development, because if it wasn't growth or development, you would not be asked to be promoted. The thing is, it is important for us to understand that oftentimes promotion does not feel good. Oftentimes promotion is not convenient. Oftentimes you are not 100% sure of what the promotion requires. You just know what it is. You know sometimes what the qualifications are. You know how you got it sometimes. Sometimes you don't. So you're walking into these spaces, oftentimes not knowing what all to expect, but you have God, which means you have a friend that's sticking closer than any brother. You have support. You have love unspeakable. You have help. And one of the things that the enemy will try to tell people that are going through transition, especially spiritual transition and leadership roles or those capacities, is that the enemy will make you feel like because you've received this or you've gotten to this place, nobody could understand now. You're a unicorn. Nobody can understand, or nobody likes you, or, now people look at you differently and they're not going to want to talk to you. I don't think about any of that stuff. I had a mother in my former church. She was over 90 years old when we were released from the church to serve in Battle Creek. The mother of the church, she used to testify. She used to just talk about the goodness of the Lord and where God brought her from. And her response would always be, I don't think about other things because everybody loved me. And she's had the cutest voice. Everybody loved me. And that is the way I think on a daily basis. I don't ever think about who could be a naysayer in my life. I never think about who does not like me, because at the end of the day, I live in a world where everybody loves me. I live in a world where people who are around me genuinely want to be around me. And if someone does not, God already showed me, which means that I'm just taking myself out of the queue so that I can position myself in a place where God can be lifted up, God can be glorified, where I will not be in a position to say or do or think something that's outside the will of the Lord. And I'm obedient to where He has me. And so I live in a world where everybody loves me. I live in a world where I don't have time or the desire to focus on people or things that don't mean me any good. It's not going to do anything good for me. And I understand that. And I appreciate God for getting me to this place in my life, in my walk with Him, where people, their eyes, their views does not deter me from declaring the good works of the Lord, from praising Him wherever I am, and accepting wherever He wants me to go next. And so I think we have to accept the cup that we are supposed to take. There's a cup of glory. We're really sharing with God the glory, the privilege of being called to do His will, whether it's ministry, intercession, whatever the case may be. God has called you. It is a blessing. And that cup, we take it, we love it. But there's a cup of suffering. There's a cup of uncomfortability. There's a cup where you will have to endure. There's a cup that we have to take. That is the flip side. It is the duality of promotion. It is the fact that there's an expectation that we do and say what God wants us to do and say, that we live for Him, that we do for Him, so that we can grow. And oftentimes, growing is not convenient and it does not feel good. But I am so glad to know that God is in the midst, that He will not leave us nor forsake us, that He will be with us even until the end of the world. Listen, I hope by now you understand that there are two sides of promotion, that there's a duality in that you can feel two things at the same time. You can feel the beauty of God moving you forward, but the pressure of what's next, the pressure to have it all together, the pressure to maybe have unrealistic expectations that other people may have on you, or you may even have on yourself. But I want to encourage you that God is with you. God is there. He is fighting for you, and you can cast all of your cares upon Him because He cares for you. And I do too. If this video has blessed you today, I hope that you would like it, that you would share it with someone that you know, that you would comment on it and tell me one area that God is showing you that there are growing pains, but yet there is promotion. I would love to hear that from you. I love you. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Mask Off podcast. I hope that you got something from it. I hope that it is encouraging your heart to see it from a different perspective. And when your heart is overwhelmed in the midst of that transition or those growing pains, that you will be led to that rock that is higher than you. And that rock is Jesus. And He is there always. Okay? To be there for you, to support you, to fight for you, and to let you know that you are His. Okay? I thank you for tuning in today. I hope that it blessed you in some way. And remember, I love you. And the only one stopping you is, see you soon.